We're starting in on our fourth and final module. So I mentioned in module 3 in that intro that we would be seeing confidence intervals and hypothesis tests in both modules. So here's how that looks. We're now looking at 2 samples instead of 1. So 2 sample means or 2 sample proportions. For confidence intervals, again, we have some point estimate, some statistic based off of now 2 samples. So what is that? Usually we're looking at the difference of the 2 sample means that we found. So this is our point estimate, right? The center of our interval. And then we're still going to build in plus or minus some margin of error depending on our confidence level. So it works very, very similarly to the 1 sample situation, except now we're interested in these 2 populations. How do their means differ? We are hoping, again, that this traps the real value, right? What's the real value in this situation? So this hopefully traps mu1, right, which is the parameter associated with x1 bar, minus mu2, which is the parameter associated with x2 bar. So we are hoping that that's the case. Now, we never know, again, because this information came from a sample and we associate some kind of confidence level. So we don't know for sure that the real value is in there, but depending on our confidence, we feel good about the real value falling in there. We could do a similar thing with proportions, but since we've been through this before, I'll do the hypothesis test. I'll set up one of those in terms of proportions. So this is similar. We have 2 populations and we want to know, are their proportions different? Is one larger or smaller than the other? The null hypothesis always is going to have some sort of equal sign in there, right? So the assumption is sort of innocent, no change, no difference. So we're basically saying we think P1 is equal to P2. Another way to write this is that P1 minus P2 equals 0. And sometimes there are benefits to this representation because notice when we write it as subtraction, it kind of looks like what we did here. Now these are means, these are proportions, but this is where we start to say, maybe these 2 things are related somehow. You'll find out more about that later. For our alternative, again, this might depend. If we have some reason to believe that, oh, population 2 has a larger proportion of whatever it is we're looking at, well, then we might think, okay, population 1, population 2, if we think population 2 is larger, there's our alternative. Again, this can be less than, greater than, or not equal to, but the null should always have an equality. This one you can also rewrite, so you could pull P2 over, so you could say P1 minus P2 is less than 0. Again, that'll help us kind of relate to these confidence intervals. But hopefully we can see with one example for means and one example for proportions that, hey, this looks a lot like what we were just doing in module 3. So I think this will be a pretty smooth transition. A few things, of course, change when we go from 1 sample to 2. But like I've been saying, start early, reach out when you've got questions, and I'm sure we'll be just fine.